Okay, now that we got those errors cleared, let's go ahead and start working on the inside. One thing you're going to want to remember as well is to make sure that you're viewing this in high quality display. So for some reason when I reopened this file, it defaulted back to the regular quality. So I'm going to go up to View and go to Display Performance and go to high quality. And remember, when you do the view high quality through the view menu, you're doing it to the entire document, to your complete InDesign document. If you were to do it through the object menu, it would be specific to an object that you have selected. So it wouldn't do it to all objects in your document. It wouldn't do it to the entire document on the whole. It would just do it to whichever document or whichever object you had selected. In this case, I don't have an object selected, so it's not even giving me the option. But if I selected this, which is our reference image, and I went to Object and Display Performance, then I can change it specifically. Okay, so one is pertaining to the document on the whole, and one is pertaining to an individual object. So now we get a better view of it, and like we did last week, we're just going to go through and do the background panels first. So we have in this one, in the left panel, we've got just an image, and in the middle panel, we've got, it's just white, so it would be background only. We wouldn't have to actually put anything there. And then in the third panel, on the far right here, we've got that color, that background color that we'll sample. We'll use our eyedropper and we'll sample that. And remember, when you're using the eyedropper in InDesign, it sort of defaults back sometimes to the color theme tool. And when you've drawn something and then have to use the eyedropper, you have to actually go and get it ready. It's a little strange, but you have to just make sure the tool is showing. So it's good to go over here, set your eyedropper now, and then you know you're not going to be having to deselect and set the tool and so on. Just gets ready ahead of time. Okay, so first I'm going to bring in this object, this image. I'll go to File and Place. And remember, it's Command D. I always do Command D, so I even struggle when I get into the menu to find some things. And gotta find my way here. That's so much going on. Okay, we're doing the inside. We'll find that image. There it is. Now I'm going to go up to my bleed here because the object takes up the panel only. So instead of doing just a drop anywhere, I'm going to go to the bleed, I'm going to click and drag and designate the space that I want for it. Now, what the frame is doing here is conforming to the picture size. But if you hold Shift down, you can conform your frame to the size you want. So when you're doing this, I'm not holding Shift. When you're doing this, it's actually doing the proportions of the image, which is actually helpful. But in this case, we're going to be, we want to make sure that we're designating only the panel to the image size. So I'm going to hold Shift down, and then that will let me tell it exactly where to go. So I'm going to go to my guide there, and the image comes in. Now you can see that the image conformed to the width that we set, which again is quite helpful because then it's not disappearing some of the image. We know what we're working with right off. And then I'll click on the little circle in there. See that little circle that comes up? That's indicating that I'm about to click on the image in the frame, remembering that there's an object within another object here. So I'll click that circle, and then I can go and scale this up, remembering to press Shift. So I'll go up to the bleed guide there, and I'll come down to the bleed guide here, and then I can move that into place. And I'm holding Shift still. So I'll put it just looking at the other one. put it about there. Okay, and then because I don't have anything else to do with this image, I don't even have any content on that background, I'm just going to lock it. So I'll select it and I'll do Command L, or I'll go to Object and Lock. And save as I go along. Okay, our next panel is just text on that background, so that's fine. We don't have to do anything there at the moment. We'll go over here and we've got that background that is just an off-white in color, and it looks like it just comes down to about halfway into the image there. So I'll get a shape. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and while I'm here I just want to mention again, I don't know if you in your previous term that you covered this. If you weren't in my class, you didn't, or if you were in my class, you did. But we have the shape tool and we have the frame tool here. The frame tool is what we use when we want to inset an image. However, the shape tool does that and more. So I have a feeling that InDesign will soon be eliminating the rectangle or the frame tool altogether and just leaving us with the shape tools. So it's becoming good practice to essentially just work with the shape tools, because you can put an image in them the same as you can a frame tool. Okay, so I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and I'll go over to the bleed again and go to the guide. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be making something that colors, that's the color of this panel. So I'm going to use my eyedropper now. I have my fill brought to the front. So because this is an image, it's not an object. We're just sampling the color. We're not sampling attributes or characteristics, only the color that we're referencing here. So I have to tell it if I want the fill or the stroke. I want it to fill in that color, so I make sure that here the color is forward. If I had this forward, the stroke, it would just color the outline of the object. So I'm going to make sure fill is activated, and with my eyedropper I'll click on this color and it will fill that area. Then I'll default back to my main tool, remembering always to default back to your selection cursor, your main cursor there. Click off, looks fine, so I'm going to lock that too, Command L. And then remember, you can press W if you want to get a guides free view. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in these images now because I'm kind of on a roll placing things in, and I always like to go from the bigger items down to the smaller details. So we did that image, which is a large item. We did this panel, which is a large item, and we don't need to do anything in the middle. So our next largest items really are these images. And I'm just going to make sure that I correctly move this image up. So I brought this panel. I brought this panel all the way down to the bottom, but we can see in the brochure we're referencing that it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. So I'm just going to unlock it here, and I'm going to pull it up a bit, and it looks like it's in line with, we'll say, roughly the top of that container. So I'll take it up to about there. And then I'll relock that, Command L, and save, Command S. Okay, I'm going to place in these images now.